Alright, so you know what it is. We got a new character in Wuthering Waves. It's a new patch, and so it's time to see where they've landed on the tier list. And I want to point out there's a lot of changes to the tier list. Okay, we have a watch tag added to like a bajillion different characters here. We see some movement on the tier list for different characters for varying reasons. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and the surprising placement for, I'm sure, some of you, where Phoebe has landed. But here we are again at pridewin.gg, taking a look at the most trusted tier list in the Wuthering Waves community, at least on the EN side of things. We're here taking a look at the patch 2.1 part 1 tier list for Tower of Adversity, and we don't always agree with everything that Pridewin puts forth initially. Sometimes they're maybe a little bit behind on some of the placements or movements. Sometimes they're pretty on point. That's why I make the video, so that we can go over this, whether we agree with certain things or disagree, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Phoebe landing here at tier 0, which might surprise some of you guys, because I've been hearing actually some people think that she's a support character based on the showcases and the promotional footage we saw from her, because she doesn't necessarily scream like hyper carry or main DPS to some people, right? She doesn't have as flashy animations as Jinzhou or maybe Camellia or Carlotta to most players from what I've been hearing. So this placement might surprise some of you guys, and I can say from having played her in the beta, I was also surprised with her performance. When I play her, it doesn't necessarily, it's a kind of goofier play style for a DPS than I feel like we've seen with a lot of these other characters, but her performance is hard to really, deny. It's really good, and she's very, very free-to-play friendly. So this actually just dropped all this stuff, so let's go ahead and take a look at the changelog, because I haven't read this yet, but let's go ahead and see their reasoning for why they've placed her here. Where is it here? Oh, perfect, right away. Phoebe, added to the tier list, tier 0 DPS. We'll put it as bluntly as we can. Phoebe is the best free-to-play DPS in the game. You know what? That actually might be fair. Yeah, I mean, if she's a tier 0 character and she's more free-to-play friendly than these other three here, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I can agree with that. Let's see if they go further into that. With a weapon and teammates that don't even require you to do a single pull, she performs less than half a tier below Jinzhou with her premium weapon, meaning that what they mean here is if Jinzhou has her premium weapon and her premium supports, a free-to-play version of Phoebe is still half a tier below Jinzhou. That is insane. Okay, that is insane. And then she can get improved with better weapons and quick swap. Sorry, I sounded like an idiot there. But yeah, she can improve her performance with quick swapping, and meaning good gameplay, and she can also improve her performance with better weapons, right? And what they mean here with a weapon and teammates that don't require you to do a single pull, what they mean to say is there are 4-star characters you can pair her with that are very, very strong with her. And she also has, that the weapon that came to us in the special event that's going on right now, etc. There's free-to-play options for her. Let's take a look at maybe her build that they decided to go with for her. They don't have that yet, but they just don't have that stuff in here yet. So they're still waiting to update that. We'll probably see that in the coming days or weeks, but she has free-to-play options with her. For example, you have Rover here, which is a Spectro character that is, as you can see, getting bumped up because of characters like characters like Phoebe. Sorry, I'm being stupid. With Phoebe being introduced into the game, the Spectro Rover gets a big boost, right? She get that because you need to use this character basically with Phoebe. It's a very, very strong synergy, and everybody has Rover, right? So this is obviously what they mean by free-to-play teams work well with her. They have great synergy, and you don't have to do premium characters. You don't have to do premium weapons even in order for her to perform well. But you do get a lot out of potentially using certain free-to-play characters or certain premium characters that might be coming down the line. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I have a feeling we'll see one of them in maybe a patch or two, but that's just me speculating, of course. I don't know 100% when that's going to happen. But Phoebe is, as they said, and as I am, telling you here, incredibly free-to-play friendly. And I can't stress that enough. She performs very well at a free-to-play level. And like they were saying, right, she can only get better with, certain gameplay and with potentially a better weapon, for example, right? One of her best synergies, for example, is with a free-to-play character. So you don't even need to have an entire premium roster with her for her to perform as well as Jinzhou, or potentially even better than Jinzhou. So I just wanted to point that out, that she's a rock star right out of the box with low investment. Even if you aren't quick swapping with her, she's still super duper powerful. And just to add to all of that, Spectro Rover is able to use the Spectro Frazzle as well as, Phoebe being able to use this. This is something newly added in 2.0, but Spectro Rover didn't necessarily get to benefit off of this as much as you might expect, because they didn't have a character like Phoebe to pair well with in order to be able to do that. So you see Spectro Rover going up from tier 3 all the way to tier 1.5, which is huge. I also want to point out that Pride Wind doesn't seem like they want to jump Rover all the way up to tier 1 because they don't consider them to be better than Mortefi, for example. And so as a result of that, not, putting them on the same tier. Mortefi also works on Phoebe teams as well. Mortefi also works on Jian teams. Basically any team that's going to want, heavy attacks or anything like that, especially, are going to be able to use Mortefi. He is a bit limited on his teams, however, so you won't see him jump up to tier 0.5 in their eyes. I consider him to potentially be a tier 0.5 character because he can pair well on Phoebe teams, and she's one of the best in the game right now. Jian needs to have his expert tag added to him. It's been, the entire game's lifespan, and he does not have the expert tag added to him. Yes, you can play him kind of brain dead, just, hold on to heavy attack the whole time, and he'll perform well. But if you play him in an expert manner, he could perform as well as a lot of these other characters here at tier 0, making him potentially a tier 0 character with an expert tag. Just like Chang Li is kind of a character that if you play her like ass, will perform down here at tier 1, to be honest. But if you play her, fairly well, she can perform like a tier 0.5. If you play her really well, she can actually perform like a tier 0. So she's kind of in a weird place right now, because they feel like if you aren't playing her right, she's a tier 1, and if you play her really, really well, she's a tier 0, clear-cut tier 0. However, they don't have, the expert tag doesn't qualify or quantify you being able to go up 2 whole entire tiers right now, which is why they put her at tier 0.5 to compensate for that. That can be a little bit confusing for people. That might be why some people constantly complain about why Chang Li is at tier 0.5 on this list, because if you're not, playing her at a high level, she won't perform as high as this, which is why they put her here with an expert tag. She's part of why they even made the expert tag to begin with. But they should also add it to Jian. He's been around since 1.0. Now, as much criticisms as I have for Pride Win, and I feel like there's not a single video that's gone by where I didn't have some form of criticism for at least something on the list, right? I do want to give them some props here because they did bump up Havoc Rover, because now in the game, in the main story, you can get Havoc Rover and take them to S6. And that S6 is going to allow them to have a really, really fat crit rate boost, making it easier to build the character, meaning you can lean into more damage, etc., etc. So this is a naturally big, huge boost for Rover. But on top of that, the Havoc Rover actually pairs very well with Rochia. It's kind of a weird situation where Rochia actually boosts up the performance of the Havoc Rover more than Rochia boosts up the performance of someone like Camellia, because Camellia actually synergizes better with Sanhua, because Sanhua doesn't need much field time at all, right? She barely even needs to be there to get the most out of her, and that means that you can allow a lot more field time for Camellia, right? Sanhua doesn't need much field time, and Camellia needs a lot of field time. It's just like the perfect glue to the team when building Camellia is to just throw a free-to-play option like Sanhua in there, and she also buffs her up in a lot of different ways. So it's really, really strong, where Rochia wants a little bit more field time, right? And it actually works really, really well with a character like Rover. So, because Rover gets that new S6, and because Rochia's in the game now, been in the game since the last patch, Rover is getting the bump up, which I have to give them props for. It makes perfect sense. This was a no-brainer, but credit where credit's due, right? And a little sad intermission for the boy, okay? For Ling Yang, who has been dropped down another tier and is now down here with Alto, where the funny thing about this is Alto has an expert tag. This means that if you play him really well, he's actually going to perform like a tier 1 character. So that means that Ling Yang is essentially down here at tier 3 all by himself as long as you can play Alto well. Like that's how you should think about this. This 5-star character is essentially the worst character in the game for DPS, right? And because there's so many DPS characters in the game, this essentially makes him kind of the worst character you could possibly have. You know, sure, there's other characters on tier 3, but they fit different roles, okay? They fit different roles, so think about it like that, all right? Now, I don't mean to hate on Ling Yang. Who am I kidding? Of course I mean to hate on Ling Yang. This guy's essentially the Arlen of, you know, Wuthering Waves, Arlen being from Honkai Star Rail. Anyways, let's talk about our boy over here, Kuro. He has the expert tag. I don't mention him very often because he's just fallen off, bro. He's all the way down here at tier 2. Look at this big gap. There's nobody even here at tier 1.5 or tier 1. However, if you play Kuro well, right, he can perform like a tier 1.5. He's also a standard banner character, so you might be able to get him, let's say maybe to S1, S2, S3, whatever, and he might start to perform better under those conditions. So if you've been playing the game for a while, this guy can perform well. Will he be better than a Zhang Li Yao? Well, to be honest, that depends on how well you can play him, and that depends on how many times you can get copies of him to give him those boosts. So it's a bit tough to say where that fine line is, whether a Kuro, I mean, dude, I even wonder if he can perform as well as Zhang Li Yao at S6 at this point, right? You know, even with the expert tag associated with him. So, poor guy, he's a little bit harder to play for a lot of people, and he suffers for it, but I wanted to point that out. All right, so let's talk about this watch list situation here, okay? Because this is part of why I make these videos, is I don't always agree with everything that Prideman does, and that's why we give our feedback. That's why we make these videos, etc., right? So, the watch list tag, if you guys didn't know, is basically them just saying, hey, we're not sure about this character's placement. We might want to drop them down. They might stay where they are. Things might change and improve for the character, yada, yada, right? So characters like Cheng Li, for example, should not even have the watch list tag on her anymore, because she's had this for a while and things never changed, because she's the quick swap queen, basically, and she works on so many quick swap teams. For example, a Zhang Li Yao team could even use her as a quick swap character. And she also, when played at an expert level, actually deserves to be up here at tier 0. So it wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, to drop her down all the way to tier 1, considering she should, in some cases, be all the way up here at a tier 0 level, and definitively up at a tier 0 level, especially since she's going to be getting character synergy coming really, really soon into the game. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And as a result of that, she's either going to solidify herself here in tier 0.5 or potentially even go up to tier 0. So keep that in mind. This watch list tag, just pretend that isn't here for Cheng Li. That shouldn't be there at all. Just delete that. That's stupid. So let's go ahead and talk about Camellia, because this is the elephant in the room, I guess you could say, with this situation. If you are doing a rotation and enemies CC you, or enemies fall out of your abilities or your attacks, and all of a sudden you aren't dealing the proper damage, the damage just falls off like a stone, okay? And that's not fun for some people. It's going to cause a lot of resets and things like that. For some people, they don't care. She still nukes everything, and some people have her signature weapon, which don't like perfect or negate her problem, but it does improve her issue. So if you have maybe her signature weapon, don't even worry about some of this, but it's true. Her damage does fall off pretty bad if things don't go well in a rotation, but having to reset the instance doesn't necessarily mean the character is lacking per se. It's just a little bit annoying, which I can agree with. But I don't think that she should get bumped down. I think she should stay where she is. If another tier 0 character comes out, you know, Phoebe's fine. Let her come into the gang. But if another tier 0 character comes out, then I can understand opening up the conversation to dropping one of these characters down. And if you want to call it Camellia, okay, I'm not going to freak out about it, okay? I'm not going to lose my mind over it, because maybe they just add the expert tag to her so that people understand, hey, if things go perfectly for you, if you perform perfectly in combat and everything goes well, she's actually tier 0. You see what I'm saying? Or if you're playing her like ass, then maybe she's down here, okay? Now, to be fair, if you play any of these characters like booty cheeks, then of course drop them down a tier. You're not performing at that level, okay? Now let's go down and kind of run through some of these really quickly, okay? Zhengli Yao, remove this watch list tag from him, okay? Because this list is based on like really high-end gameplay, and they do consider, you know, casual gameplay to an extent. They do consider free-to-play viability to an extent, but something to remember about him, he was free. Everybody got him for free when he first came out. So if you pair him with Yinlin, who is a premium character, the only premium character you really needed was her, because you got him for free. And when you play Cheng Li on a quick swap team with him, they perform at an incredibly high level. Tier 0 level, in fact. So I don't see why you would drop him down, considering he has so much going for him. Yinlin, as an example, is only getting this watch list tag because of Zhengli Yao getting the watch list tag. This is like a domino effect, all happening because of Camellia getting the watch list tag. So, in my opinion, remove Cheng Li's, remove Yinlin's, remove Zhengli Yao's, remove Jian's, remove this because he could be performing up here potentially. Encore, you might even say the same thing. If she's performing at a high level, she could perform better as well. However, I think Jian their performance being relatively similar, and if you play him really well, he deserves to be up here at tier 0, but he also functions with AoE as well, and he doesn't necessarily suffer against single target enemies either. So I feel like as a result of that, he has the edge over a character like Encore. So if any of these characters stays in tier 0.5, it should be Jian, in my opinion. But that is my opinion, and this is one of those debates that I think is actually worth talking about. But Encore, might deserve to stay. If anyone deserves to drop down, if Camellia drops down, it deserves to be Rover, right? Let's be honest here. They're both Havoc characters, and Camellia's better. It's just facts, okay? So if anyone drops down, it should be Rover to make room for Camellia, and then I think don't worry about anybody else for the most part. Everybody else can probably stay exactly where they are, okay? Now let's talk about the Baizhi situation. Baizhi has the watchlist tag added to them because Rover, the Spectral Rover, is now being used in a lot of teams more than they were before, okay? The same thing with Yuhu. If you have, let's say, a Shorekeeper team, a Verena team, and then you've been using Baizhi as maybe your third team, and now you're maybe using Spectral Rover because you have a character like Phoebe in the game now who's a free-to-play god, now you're not really going to be using Baizhi. All of a sudden, you're benching your Baizhi despite the fact that she actually has a revive. She can heal a downed character at S6. But the problem is that she's mostly a healer. She's not providing buffs and things like that in the same way that Shorekeeper and Verena are. So she's gonna unfortunately suffer for that. And as time goes on, you're gonna end up seeing Baizhi drop down. She's still going to be on a lot of people's teams, which is maybe why they didn't drop her down immediately and added the tag. So just keep that in mind. Yuhu, exact same situation, just she's one tier below. Anyways, if you guys like this kind of stuff, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.